Hello and welcome. I'm Gayatri. Hope you are all well. I am sharing with you a masculine birthday card. A masculine card need not be dull and boring. It can be bright and colorful with full of layers and texture. And that's usually my preference for a masculine card. My card here features all of this. I will show you how I made it as well as all the techniques I used to make this card. All the products used in the making of this card are from Altenew, except for the inks. I used watercolor striped stencil along with tea ring, bleh, tree ring die and happy birthday die. I will be using label love stamp set later in the process as well. To start with, I choose the color combination first. I chose teal, orange and brown along with neutrals of white and black. But during the process, I eliminate the color brown and just stick with the teal and the orange combo. I think this is a fun color combination for masculine cards. I started sponging distress inks over the watercolor striped stencil adhered to the white cardstock panel. I used spice marmalade, carved pumpkin to start with, and later brought in ripe persimmon distress ink as well. This gives a beautiful ombre effect on the watercolor striped background panel. Then to add texture, I applied translucent embossing paste over the stencil. It applies white but dries clear. This allows the colors to show through while adding texture and dimension to the background panel. I left this panel to dry while I worked on the other elements. For the next layer, I die cut the tree ring die using white cardstock and decided to sponge gathered twigs distress ink over it. I wanted this element to be the brown colored element on my cardstock, so I sponged it heavily to get a beautiful brown tree ring. At this stage, my thinking process was I still want the brown in my color combo. But later in the process, when I start to assemble my card, you will see that I have changed my mind. Then I die cut the happy birthday die using white cardstock and sponged peacock feathers and evergreen bow distress inks to get an ombre effect on the sentiment die cut as well. This also adds depth to the sentiment. To make the sentiment a bit sturdy and add dimension, I die cut two more of the same using the white cardstock, then stacked and glued them under the sponged die cut. This die cut layered over the brown tree ring die at the moment looks really great. Moving on, the translucent paste has now dried and the texture on the panel is just amazing. I trimmed the panel half an inch on the long side, so when I adhere it on the card base, I can see the color of the card base on either side. On this panel, I have decided to spatter some Altenew True Black spray. Spatters are beautiful details that you can add on the background, and this is specifically great for a masculine card. These black spatters will tie in with the U Rock sentiment strip I stamped and trimmed from the Label Love sentiment set. The Label Love sentiment set is an older set but is one of my favorite set from Altenew. And now here is where I changed my mind on the tree ring die. I kind of layered the background panel along with the brown tree ring die I made previously and then the teal sentiment on top. But I felt the sentiment die cut got lost. The colors were too dark and there wasn't enough light coming from a white source underneath to make the sentiment stand out. Hence, I decided to change it up. I used Altenews wood grain cardstock to die cut the tree ring die instead. The wood grain gives a beautiful subtle texture to the die cut. The more the texture, the merrier for masculine cards. I glued the teal birthday die cut on top of the white tree ring die cut, and then foam mounted the UROC sentiment stamped UROC stamped sentiment on the right side of the sentiment die cut. The whole layered die cuts are adhered onto the background panel, but I use the glue only on the center of the tree ring die, so the edges are lifted up a little bit, and this gives you extra dimension. The whole panel is adhered now to the teal card base using foam adhesive. I sponged peacock feathers distress ink along the long edges of the teal card base in advance, just to tie in with the colors, the teal on the sentiment die cut. As a last touch to the card, I stamped the handmade by sentiment on the back of the card. So this completes the card. The techniques I used on this card are: 1. Bright masculine color combination. 2. Ombre ink blending over stencil. 3. Embossing paste over stencil to add texture. 4. Ombre ink blending over die cut sentiment to add depth. 5. Adding details using spatters. 6. Layering using die cuts. 7. Adding dimension using layering. I really love how this card turned out, and I hope you do so too. I have a corresponding blog post which I will link below in the description box. The blog post has more photos, details, as well as a full supply list. If you like my tutorial today, give me a thumbs up and also subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a lovely day. Bye.